Hello, everybody. Welcome to our latest Keep Optimizing live Q&A webinar session. For those of you who are joining us live, thank you so much for being here. You get the chance to ask your questions of our panelists. I say this every time, and I really do mean it. Get those questions in early, because if you wait until 40 minutes time, I almost certainly won't have time to get them answered. Plus, this week we've got 5 panelists joining us. So that's going to be 6 of us on screen, which means we're not going to have time for a huge number of questions because everyone's going to have point of view they need to share with you. So again, get those questions in early if you've got questions for us. You should be able to do that somewhere on the YouTube screen. That will ping through to me here, somewhere on the LinkedIn screen, and that will ping through to me here. And then we will get those in front of the guests as much as we can. So yeah, get those questions in early. For those of you who are tuning into this and you're not familiar with what we do at Keep Optimizing, each month we focus on a different marketing topic to help e-commerce brands build their success. Usually, or not usually, often it's something as obvious as email marketing or social media or Google ads. This month, we've gone for a hugely important marketing method in the e-commerce space, but one that isn't talked about enough, which is offline marketing, more specifically packaging, unboxing, and direct mail. And the panel are super experts in this. So each of them's done a podcast episode with us, which you can grab all that content at keepopt.com/offline if you want to go and hear them later. But they've also come on to this to have a nice big old debate about the importance of offline marketing in this industry and to answer any questions, big or small, that you have for them. So who are our panelists today? Well, we've got Dunn from Paperplanes. And you can join the data-driven direct mail revolution by going to flypaperplanes.co.uk/get started. We've got Jenkins from Epsilon Abacus, and you can check out Epsilon Abacus at www.epsilon.com/abacus. We've got Lindsay Quan from Looq Design, and you can check out them at looqdesign.com. Natalie Betts is joining us from Relish, and you can check out the Relish agency at relishagency.com. And we've got Dru Carpenter from Slippy, and you can claim your 3-free-month free trial at keepopt.com/Slippy. And I'm Chloe Thomas, host of the podcast and the host of this webinar too. Yes, it is my challenge to try and get all 5 of our panelists to give loads of great information and squeeze it all into the next 45 minutes. I have gone through. You may be going, but what's Paperplanes? But what's Relish? Don't worry, in a couple of minutes, or almost immediately, in fact, our panelists are going to come on and introduce themselves and do a much better job than I could of telling you what they do. So let me bring them all on stream. Hello, everybody. Get rid of the slide deck so you can actually see them. And let us start with... Now, I've got you all in a list, so I get everything in the right order. So we're going to go down the list. So we're going to start off with Dan. Could you quickly tell the audience a little bit more about you and Paperplanes?
Hello, everyone. I'm Dan, and I am co-founder and CEO of Paperplanes. Not Dan Paperplanes, as my name would suggest, although I was saying to the panel before we started I might change it to it because I like the ring of it. We are essentially automated retargeting specialists, but rather than focusing on social media or Google or email to trigger retargeted follow-up to drive people back to your website after an abandon or an next purchase or a reactivation, we primarily 100% focus on postal marketing as a channel. We then work with your data to give you a really good view of what it's done to drive conversions, order values, repeat purchase rates, lifetime value, you name it, we can look at it. Myself and my co-founder, Steve, have around about 20 years between us working with Tesco Club Card data, partnerships with Facebook, Twitter, Sky, and we just didn't see any of that good practice that was happening on CRM journeys that typically get played on email applied to the postal marketing channel, even though it's incredibly effective because it's not a saturated channel. So I guess that's me in a nutshell.
Marvellous. Thank you, Dan. And someone else who's deep in the world of direct mail is Dylan. So Dylan, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and Epsilon, please?
Hello everyone. Thanks, Chloe. Yes, my name's Dylan Jenkins. I work for Epsilon. Epsilon are a very big, large US marketing services business that specialises in many things, but mostly digital, data and technology. My role is running the UK arm of their data practice, and I run a business called Abacus, which has been in the UK since 1998, a long time, and it's essentially we help over 200 retailers in their targeting, so using data either to find new customers, and we base that decisioning on what their existing customers do, or we are looking at helping those businesses understand their own existing customers in more detail. Abacus is essentially a data cooperative, which is the first one in the UK and the leading one, and it looks at putting all of the data together from all of those retailers, and the information that flows from that helps you understanding whether who you're targeting and who you're communicating to in your own customer base in the best way. And that's it. That's what I do.
Cool. And I remember buying data from Abacus back in the early 2000s, not quite the 1990s, but back in my mail order days. So very cool to have you here, Dylan. And next, let's hear from Lindsay. Hello, Lindsay.
Hello, my name is Lindsay Quan of Looq Design. I help e-commerce businesses by creating experiences that take their customers from first time to lifetime. And I do this through primarily packaging. So the product packaging, the insert, the shipping box. So basically I want to help my customers get more sales and build their brand at the same time.
See, it always happens at least one point in this webinar, because I do so much clicky stuff at the beginning, I inevitably leave myself muted and try and talk to you all. But yeah, product packaging, such an untapped opportunity in this space. So it was so cool to be able to include you in the podcast series. It's great to have you here as well. Natalie, you're up next.
Hello, I'm one of the MDs of Relish, Relish agency, which are part of the Whistle Group. And at Relish, we work with e-tailers to help commercialise their product dispatch surplus weight allowance. And we do that through brand partnerships. So if there is weight allowance on a particular product dispatch customer order, we'll see if there's any suitable brands that might want to pay to take that space to have their message communicated to their audience. And we love it.
Another super clever way of marketing in the offline space that so many people just don't know about. So brilliant to have you here too. It's brilliant to have all of you here. Rather than me say that to everybody, just say all of you. Awesome to have you here. I can see we've already got one question come in. So before I let Dru intro himself, I would just say to everybody who's watching, if you want to ask questions, we've got a load of amazing panelists here. So please get those questions in early. And the person who's already asked a question already, Soul Spirit Crystals, I will be asking your question. So it's a really good one, really, really good one. So thank you for that. Dru, sorry for putting the question plug before I let you intro yourselves. Please tell everyone a bit more about you and what you get up to at Slippy.
Sure. So yeah, I'm Dru, co-founder of Slippy.io. Slippy is a platform that lets brands personalize packaging through inserts printed on demand in their fulfillment facility. So we integrate with their e-commerce store, marketing stack, and fulfillment stack to get a relevant print produced in their warehouse, included in orders, and get put in front of the customer at the right time through the unboxing. So yeah, that's kind of us in a nutshell.
I love the fact that within your intros, everyone, you've kind of made two of the biggest things everyone should know about in the world of offline marketing really clear. One, it's automatable. It's up to speed with all the tech and the opportunities you've got. You can plug this into your other database systems and get it all happening. And there's tried and tested ways of getting a great ROI from these marketing channels. There's just so much good stuff in this space, and rather than me rave on about it, let's get your perspectives. So let's give you a big open question. We'll see where this one goes to kick us off. Given all that's going on in 2023, is now the time that brands should be making sure they've got part of their marketing budget allocated to some form of offline marketing? My answer is obviously yes. I'm after a little bit more than just yes for you from each of you. Natalie, you're smiling, so I'm going to come to you first.
Oh, I don't feel like there's ever a bad time to consider your offline marketing mix. Historically, I suppose when there's macroeconomic difficulties, it's really important to see what your DM strategy looks like, because it's so accountable, and it's really easy to say shove it all in digital, but not only do you have a really robust campaign if you have a blend, but it's inclusivity needs to have digital and offline, and or online and offline, and I think we're forgetting that we need to serve people who respond more to offline marketing as well, and also to collect data. If we're only collecting data from online strategies, we're losing our holisticness, and we won't make informed decisions later on if we have to narrow our options again.
Yeah, it is kind of crazy how people just channel down this one pipe and totally ignore all the things around them. Dylan, you were nodding very sagely there. So what's your advice around this?
Yeah, I totally agree with Natalie. I mean, we talked about it a bit in the podcast when we did it, Chloe, but the reality is everybody is fighting for the digital space, and that becomes a very, very crowded marketplace, and costs are going up. And, you know, certainly for big brands, fine, you know, they've got the budgets to spend. But if you're a medium to smaller brand, it's very, very hard to get yourself noticed, certainly in search and so forth. So mixing it up is important. It's important anyway. It doesn't matter how big you are as a business. But in terms of audience, again, agree with Natalie, there are a different audience offline. You know, obviously there's huge crossover, but there are people who prefer that channel. That's how they prefer to shop. Plus it reinforces what you're doing digitally. You know, that it's all part of the same mix. So, you know, to just focus on one channel is not great, because, you know, if something goes wrong there, or, you know, there are going to be some issues, especially in, you know, in the digital space going forward. It's really, really important that people mix that up. And also found out, I think a couple of weeks ago, Royal Mail are doing huge incentives the second half of this year to get into direct mail. So there you go. If there's no other reason, take some discount from Royal Mail.
Go get some discounts from the Royal Mail. Dru, I'm going to ping over to you at this point, because I think one of the things which we haven't yet mentioned is the power of that unboxing piece, where it's that point where the customer is super excited but super nervous when they're getting your product. So that it's like a whole untapped opportunity that we're already spending a lot of money on, because we've got to package it and send it out. Do you think that's something that all brands should be considering at the moment?
Yeah, I think we've spoken about a lot of, I guess, looking at it from an acquisition perspective here, but from like a retention perspective, owned channels are becoming more and more prevalent and more of a focus. Emails, more and more emails are getting sent and less are getting to the right inbox. And email is still the main kind of driver from a retention perspective in getting in front of existing customers and increasing lifetime value. And I think that's where offline has a real opportunity, especially for us, of course, in actually putting it in with an order. So yeah, I think that email isn't dying, but it's getting more complicated and less effective. And offline is certainly something brands should be considering.
Cool. And Lindsay, you were nodding away as I was asking that question of Dru. So what would you like to add in?
I would like to add that it is your biggest opportunity to actually deliver on what you've been selling them digitally. Like, you're showing them beautiful images, you're taking them experience. Now they get the real experience where all the senses are involved. So also you need to think about the next sale. It's not just about that first time sale. Whatever you have with that box is the opportunity for the next sale. And if you're not thinking about the next sale, you're missing the biggest opportunity for retention. That's what I have to say about that, because of course I'm obsessed with packaging. So
yeah, we could quite easily just talk about packaging for the rest of the time. We probably shouldn't. Dan, your perspective, please.
Well, I think it's interesting for us because this question comes up all the time, and I don't necessarily think that postal marketing is right for everyone. if you can't justify the return on investment that goes in and what actually is going to be driven from a conversion and an average order value perspective, right? So some brands, it's clear they're struggling. We're either in a recession, whether it's been categorically stated or not, but what's clear is that consumer confidence is not great right now. As a result, spend will be down. People aren't as frivolous as their money as they have been previously. So whether you want to dictate, if you want to take part of your marketing budget and divert that into any channel, regardless of whether it's a new one or whether it's one that you've used previously, you're going to have to know that the conversions, the order values, the lifetime value, and the return on investment is strong. But it just so happens that actually this is a really strong channel for return on investment. Like, this will generate stronger overall engagement and sales impacts, especially if you can get it personalized and relevant. And the question we will get early on when we're implementing Paperplanes for our e-commerce clients is, well, are you advocating that we don't do email, or we don't do SMS, or we don't do all of these different things because we're now going to do it through you? And we're like, no, absolutely not. Those channels need to run, but maybe your broadcast channels, maybe some of the things that aren't as targeted, maybe some of the things that aren't as personalized and relevant don't have a place as much as some of the things whereby you can utilize data to drive and select an audience or get something out which is going to extend your sales cycle, and ultimately not focus so much on the cost that's going in the early stages, but more on what's going to be returned from trying some of these different initiatives that the guys are talking about here.
That's such a good point, Dan. Thank you. Yeah, we are definitely not, I don't think any of us are saying, take all your budget away from Google ads or Facebook ads or whatever else you're doing online and reallocate it to offline. We're in a world now where the more different touch points you have with your customer, the better impact you're going to have. Now, I said earlier that we had a question already in from the audience. So we're going to ask this of all of you in a second. Any of you who are out there watching live, you can ask questions, big questions or small questions of our audience, specific questions or really wide-ranging questions, but get them in early. As you see, we have 5 whole guests here, and I'm opinionated as well. So we're not going to manage to fit many questions in. And I love this question, though, from Soul Spirit Crystals. What would your advice be to Soul Spirit Crystals? It's someone who's got into a business with family, not realizing how overstocked they are. Nightmare. All that cash sitting in the warehouse. As I know, many businesses are currently sitting on huge amounts of stock at the moment. They've tried discounting but haven't gotten anywhere. Any tips to getting rid of this stock? So you are guys, you are totally welcome to play completely in your own field if you want to with this. If you've seen something which a brand is doing at the moment, because I'm sure you're seeing plenty of this happening that's working really well, please bring that on for us. I'm going to come to Natalie because we talked about this in the podcast first, and I know she's ready to answer, which will give you all a couple more minutes to think. So Natalie, your take on this one?
Yeah, so obviously through my lens of brand partnerships, so this won't necessarily help you sell that stock readily, but you can turn that stock into marketing campaigns. If your product is a crystal, I'm going to just adapt my response a little bit, because if it was an FMCG product, I would say utilize that stock as a sample in itself. And
sorry, Natalie, quickly, could you explain FMCG?
Sorry. Also in our edition, fast moving consumer good, which is typically, all the sorts of things you buy in a supermarket. So your cleaning products, your daily groceries, not your high ticket items. I believe in the States it's a CGP. Wait.
Yeah, I think that's it.
Lindsay's
nodding.
Lindsay, what is it?
CPG.
CPG.
Consumer packaged goods. Yeah, very close.
The right letters, wrong order. But basically, where a miniature, like a taste or a trial of that product would quite quickly lead to a sale. With something like a crystal, that you can't really trial that product. What I would suggest, because one of the comments on LinkedIn when my podcast went out with you, Chloe, I don't know if it's the same lady, but also had a jewelry company, said that they couldn't use it in that way. So I suggested using it in product placement, instead, or perhaps working with influencers. So product placement, I would suggest partnering with a fashion brand who doesn't sell jewelry, and having them showcase their clothing featuring your jewelry and have that referenced in the imagery, and then having it all linked to your site, and then also working with other brands as a gift with purchase. So it's showcasing your brand, elevating it, borrowing the perceptions of the brand that you're partnering with. So unfortunately, that's not really necessarily talking about how to discount your product and have it leave your warehouse quickly, but it could be a way of turning that stock into a marketing campaign instead.
Nice answer. Anyone else got some tips for Soul Spirit crystals? Who wants to go next?
Just on this one, it was funny when I saw that, because coming into this session, our team, we were just signing off on a back in stock campaign, which we've just signed off, like an automated flow, which effectively can look at items that are overstocked or a clearance or promotional, and be able to dictate based on the profile of the customer whether they are ones that relevant customers to actually encourage them to come back to the website. And obviously their creative can be completely different, and the products that's put in front of them can be completely different to products that are put in front of other people. So we have this automated flow that can look at items that have just come back in stock, or items whereby you really want to plug them because you've got too many of them, and actually get that out to customers. And maybe not just putting that to them, but maybe giving them a little incentive to come by and make a wider basket purchase anyway, would be a really nice way of doing it. But outside even of that flow, for me, getting something relevant to the specific product back in front of customers, or being able to isolate and identify the right cohort of people based on spend and frequency, is going to maximize your chances of getting those products purchased. So not always about the trade tactical driving plan, but the cohort and the actual data you can use to select the audience to actually refine it is going to probably do wonders for, again, return on investment, I guess.
Love it. So we've had 3 big tips so far. Number 1, how can you utilize it in your marketing, as Natalie was saying? Secondly, as Dan was saying, find the right database to send it to, because I think you can end up just plastering discount messages across everything, letting it consume all your marketing activity, whereas there may just be a small part of your database who are the ones who are actually responding to it, and you can talk about more positive messages to others. And there was a third one, which was I've totally forgotten what the third one is. Brain fog has hit. It will come back to me. Dru, Lindsay, Dylan, anything you guys, any extra tips you've got on this for our watcher?
I do.
Oh, sorry.
We'll go Lindsay, then we'll go Dylan.
Sure. I want to back up and talk about just repeat customers. We've already talked about it. Repeat customers are going to be your sales for sure. You already know what they've purchased. So think about complementary crystals to what they already have. If they're into abundance, they'll probably want more abundance crystals. You can bundle those together. Look at your repeat customers. That's where I think you're going to get rid of a lot of that stock.
Nice, like it. Dylan?
Yeah, I mean, just going on from that, actually, the only bit I was going to say, one of the things we do see quite a bit of is some clients that sort of will do a wholesale discount and try and market to everybody, and that is definitely the wrong way to go, because you've got to be really clear about the pockets, as you said there, Chloe. You know, there are going to be a group of people on your database that are just, if you like, offer hunters, discount hunters. And they are the perfect people to get sale, you know, highly discounted offers to. Be very careful to send big discounts to good quality customers, because you're just going to devalue your brand. So you have to, tread quite carefully there. So in terms of understanding your customers, really, really important that you understand that from how they've come in and how they purchase, to sort of have, in terms of how you have that ongoing message with them.
Very true. Dru, how about you? Your advice on this?
I'm unsure somewhat by the question whether it's specific product SKUs they're referring to, or they're just overstocked on almost every product. I think, if it's specific product SKUs, looking at the cohort, looking at the people that are most likely to purchase that, kind of just reiterating what everyone else said on here, really.
Yeah, I think I think for me, one of the key things is that there are so many different forms of discounting and so many different ways you get the discounting in front of the customer. So, taking everything that everyone's put together, find other ways of using the stock, but also consider doing bundles and bulk buys. Rather, if you've got loads to clear, 20% off is not your friend. Buy 3, get 1 free, or we've put together the perfect bundle for sorting out whatever the crystals sort out. So you've got higher price point bundles that shift more stock for you. I think those sorts of things are your friend. Then the segmenting of it, then working out where to put it. So whether you're putting it in certain, we have an update from Soul Spirit Crystals. Dru, it's everything. And we've name and shamed Mum as well, so don't let her watch the video. So yeah, overstock across everything. So it's going to be bundles, it's going to be big volumes, working out how you can use that to recruit customers in the marketing, all those kind of good stuff. So thank you so much. Awesome question. I've done we did a whole webinar series on this that's available to watch with loads of good ideas, which I'm going to put in the chat comments for you. Oh, hold on, totally lost the comments there. Soul Spirit Crystals, which is totally free to access. So go and dive in, summit.ecommercemasterplan.com if anyone wants to go there. Loads of content on clearing those overstocks. Right, back to the core of offline marketing then, everyone. We've had a topic which is quite linked to overstocks in the big picture, which has reared its head under most of the sharing and the promotion we've done of these episodes. And it is that sustainability becomes a question when people are looking at doing offline marketing, because there's paper involved, there's products involved, there's things involved, which is weird because it's not like there isn't a carbon footprint to using Facebook ads or sending an email, because there is, everybody. Any perspectives we should know about in the sustainability side of things across those areas that you all work in? I mean, obviously we've got, kind of paper stock and all sorts of things. Anyone want to dive first into this? I'm kind of after quick tips rather than, expecting you to know all the carbon content of everything. Natalie, you look eager. So we'll come to you and then we'll go to Dru.
I was just going to say, speak to your printers about ask for their green quote. So a lot of agencies or printers will give you a gold, silver, bronze pricing strategy. Ask for their green quote, which will provide the carbon emission for estimate how many what the weight of carbon they think is. Ask for their carbon offsetting initiatives and do some research. Obviously there's been an issue with greenwashing in the past, so ask more information about what their offsetting plans actually involve. We work with lots of different printers which we've heavily audited, and there's some really good initiatives out there, so don't let the bad practices put you off. Just know to ask the right questions, and all the good ones will be proud to show you and talk to you about what they're doing. If anyone's vague, then they probably haven't audited it themselves and they're just just trying to keep you quiet.
And don't be scared by the word audited, everyone, because month on month it gets easier. Month on month everyone is having to pull this information together, so yeah, definitely go and do those checks. Dru, I said I'd come to you next. Your perspective on this one.
Sure. So I guess just in terms of our products, it typically merges separate pieces of paper that would go in a box together anyway: shipping labels, picking lists, marketing inserts, etc. So to a certain extent, it's merging those into one piece of material. I think that people often get a bad rep for this, at least the print houses we work with and paper suppliers. It's all carbon offset out of the gate. The options that we offer: fully recyclable, carbon offset, part recycled content, fully recycled options available, even stuff like seeded paper. I think anyone that knows their salt in this space is certainly offering fully recycled options and the whole lot, really.
I think actually when it comes to parcels, which obviously Dru, Natalie, you're both quite passionate about what goes in a parcel, so much of that is already determined at the point when you add something into it. So arguably you're making better use of a load of carbon that's already being spent. Natalie, I think you got anything to add in on that one?
Yeah, because I just think obviously we used to use the phrase piggybacking in a bit of a negative light, but we are using an existing supply chain. There's no extra lorries, there's no extra staff. Like I think we should just be shouting that from the rooftops more. And as a result of this podcast, Dru, you might not be aware, but Relish and Slippy are talking in a couple of weeks, because we think what you're doing in that product dispatch space and how we can help our clients streamline their messaging into one piece of paper is something we've been wanting to do as well. So I just think utilize it more.
I feel a warm glow, bringing brilliant people together. Dylan, obviously we've got the paper side of things, but there's an element of being sensible about how deep you go with the mailing list, isn't there, as well, when it comes to sustainability, without meaning to, determine your answer for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I was trying to think then, but I think every single one of our clients, sustainability's top of their agenda. So pretty much all of them, I think all of them use recycled paper. In terms of, the element we're involved with, which all clients, want to do, it's about targeting, it's getting the right audience. So it's not mass mailing and mass marketing. It's being selective and understanding who you're going to and why you're going to them, because nobody wants to waste marketing spends, and certainly you don't want to be targeting the wrong people. So pretty much everything that we do, which is the case obviously for most marketeers, but certainly in the space of direct mail and catalogs, it's all about being as accurate as you can with your audience selection, because that benefits everybody. And as Dan said, it's all about return on investment. It's all about long-term customers. So it's important. All those aspects of sustainability are important, but even more so for companies that use the channel and want to make sure they're targeting it and using it in the right way. So yeah, absolutely.
And a huge growth in naked catalogs as well. So sending without poly bags, and almost very rarely with paper envelopes too. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's loads of incentives. The more sustainable it can be, the more incentives are out there. So you can get lots of help, whether you're in the channel already or you're thinking about it. There's lots of help out there. As I mentioned in the podcast, market reach are a good starting point, which is part of the Royal Mail. They give a lot of advice on this. So it's absolutely key for everybody, I would suggest.
Yeah, and of course, when you say incentives, that's the Royal Mail incentive, financially incentivizing you to drop the poly wrap.
Correct.
And so forth. Lindsay, you were nodding along a lot there, and then I'll come to you, Dan.
Sure. So I'm coming at it from a different angle, because a lot of times I'm doing the original design. So for me, it's really making good choices at the beginning. Again, if foil doesn't recycle, I'm trying not to use a lot of foil. It's beautiful, don't get me wrong. But also, if you do have something that you're doing that's sustainable, you need to talk about it and also tell people how to recycle it, how to dispose of it. I think a lot of brands forget about it. They're like, it's done, yay. But that's what consumers want. They want to know that you're thinking about it. So give them what they want on your website, on your packaging. Tell them, what are we doing as a brand to be more sustainable? How do we dispose of the product? Stuff like that, I think, is super important.
We had, actually, on the subject of product packaging, I had someone who's a pet food supplier on my other podcast, eCommerce MasterPlan, last year, who was saying that they, for sustainability reasons, they're shipping their product in Tetra Paks. And I was like, no, Tetra Paks are Satan in the world of sustainability. And he said, well, actually, we allow, we invite our customers to send the Tetra Paks back to us, because we've got the lead in, because they are recyclable now, but they've got to go through this right space. So we'll do that via free P&P. And when that Tetra Pak is sent to us for filling, it's this small, whereas a can is this big. So the amount it changed in terms of logistics to get the cans to the canning factory or the Tetra Pak factory was phenomenal. So do you see people making those kind of decisions with their product packaging?
Some are definitely thinking about, how can I have a program or make a program where they can send it back for refill, or to recycle it and use it. So I definitely see a shift in that way, so which is great.
Yeah, it's all good. Dan, your perspective on the sustainability side of offline marketing, please.
Well, good to check the ISO accreditations of the print providers you're working with, or the providers who you are partnering with are then partnering with. That's always a good one. Forest Stewardship Council approval as well on all materials, and whether that can actually be given. So your logo, the FFC logo, can appear on anything that goes out there. Utilization of data, to build on Dylan's point, which I agree with, being able to rationalize and really refine who is receiving paper and who's receiving direct mail through effective use of data is really important, because it allows us to understand not just a wider audience without any kind of interaction or relative utilization or effectiveness for the brand, but actually utilize data to drive that efficient message or strip people out who don't need to be communicated to, is really important. But I think on the side of all of that, paper and the direct mail industry is relatively not the problem per se when it comes to carbon, when it comes to like the sustainability angle. And I think that's really easy to forget. There's a lot that needs to be done on sustainability across all forms of marketing. Think about how much the impact on the environment it's costing to actually heat or to keep servers running, or the impact on a lot of things that, paper relatively is quite a simple one. It could be recycled, and of course you need to have the right sustainability methods in place. But I think there's a need as a wider industry to all have sustainability in mind. I think it's associated so much with offline because there's materials that go into it, but it's not always the materials that's the problem. It's the overall approach that people are taking to marketing in general.
And let's face it, in the retail industry, the majority of the sustainability problem is not in the marketing, digital or offline. There's plenty of other bigger areas to be tapped into. Okay, guys, we have not long left. So I'm going to give you our final question. So you've all got enough time to actually answer. I'm not going, you've only got 20 seconds. My final question, I think you're going to I hope you're going to like answering. It's a fairly easy one, which is, do you have one tip for anyone watching who either wants to up their offline marketing this year or start offline marketing this year on how they can improve either their recruitment or their acquisition? So basically, what's your favorite type of offline marketing is what I'm asking you. That they've still got time to deploy this year to have an impact at their peak season. Who would like to go first? Dru, how about you? Are you up for being our first answerer on this one?
Sure, yeah. I think the main thing from my perspective would be to take advantage of the personalization capabilities within offline. Massively improved in the last couple of years, and really to test and iterate and improve, you need to be able to personalize, you need to be able to A/B test, you need to be able to see what works and what doesn't. And that's something that you can take advantage of in offline that you couldn't perhaps 5 or 10 years ago. So whatever channel you're using, whether it's personalized inserts in the box or it's direct mail or whatever else, I think personalization is incredibly important.
Love it. Who wants to go next? Any takers? Anyone want to jump in? Natalie?
I can suggest, if anyone's feeling everyone is, but particularly budget conscious, we manage a swap program. So we can recommend retailers that you could swap your messaging with. So it really slashes your media costs. So it's just a management fee, really. So basically, rather than paying a media cost to place your insert, which I won't mention costs on now, but basically we would give you some recommendations on who you could swap with instead. And honestly, it's fractional and it can be set up in a number of weeks. We've got some pretty good printers. You could have ads out in 2 weeks. And definitely, like Dru said, A/B test as much as you can, even regardless of what you're doing or what the size is, just get as much learning as possible.
Yeah, even if you've lowered the costs by swapping rather than buying data, still test, still measure, still see what the response is, because you're going to want to optimize it for next time. Dylan, you're nodding away. So anything else you want to add in your sector?
Yeah, I mean, I'd reiterate a little bit what I said earlier. If people are thinking about getting into direct mail, whether it's a mail piece or a catalogue, it's a good time the second half of this year to get into it, because there's a lot of incentives coming out to do that, especially, as I say, the Royal Mail. We all know the Royal Mail have had their challenges over the last few years, so they really are trying to drive revenues, and they know they've got to encourage direct mail and people doing it through the Royal Mail. So there's some big opportunities, whether you're an existing mailer or somebody new to the channel. So I would absolutely advise that. And it's been a relatively underused channel compared to what it was 2 years ago, and there are good reason for that. But I think it's something people should take advantage of this second half of the year.
Yeah, I think the subtle undercurrent tip within your advice there, Dylan, is for everyone watching, if you want to start doing offline marketing, the systems, the processes are tried and tested in the space, and you will save so much money, create so much better a way of doing it if you speak to someone who's been there and done it. Don't go and think you can design a great mail piece in in Adobe and then or in Canva and it's going to clean up for you. Go and get some advice, and it will save you so much money and increase your results so much, because it's a brilliant, helpful industry. So please do that. Lindsay or Dan, who wants to give their tip next? Lindsay's waving away.
I do. I would say talk to my friends here about inserts in boxes, especially. I feel like that is the lowest cost, most effective way to get people excited about their next purchase or even what they just purchased. It's so much great real estate, especially if you have a very small product. So
yeah, because obviously you're constrained on the product itself. So using that, and more adaptable than the product, because you can't change your product packaging every week, can you?
Exactly.
And Dan, our final tip.
Move away from reliance on voucher codes and incentives and focus more on the overall halo effect that can be driven through getting direct mail or inserts or offline into your customers' hands. We are at a point now where attribution analysis doesn't have to lean on who's redeemed a voucher code. And we all know the volatility of e-commerce. We all know that we want to change promotions quickly and rapidly. And we know that people are horrendous at actually engaging with codes or offers. So especially in the environment where we're in today, where the bottom line and the profit margins are so important, being really clear on how the right message at the right time can trigger a next purchase without the need for an incentive, or a reactivation with brand-led messaging versus more product-led messaging can make a difference. Or let's say an abandon flow is better than following someone at browse before they actually get through to abandon. All these things don't need to lead on an incentive or a voucher code to actually measure performance. So I think we need to start thinking about that data scientific approach to everything we do on the offline channel, and have attribution in mind, because when we think about return on investment, you want a full holistic picture of what's going on, as opposed to having to rely too heavily on a discount that might be more tactical than strategic, let's say.
Great advice. Thank you, Dan. And you open up a whole other world of questions. The good news for anyone going, attribution, is we did a brilliant month's focus on attribution earlier this year. So go and binge listen to those podcast episodes if you want the ins and outs on the latest ways to get your attribution right. Thank you all for being part of this session today. To those of you watching live, thank you for coming along and bringing in some questions. Really appreciate it. Those of you watching on the replay, I hope you've got as much out of this as I suspect you will have done. And to our amazing panelists, Dru, Natalie, Dylan, Lindsay and Dan, thank you so much for sparing the time to come and do the Q&A and for being on the podcast too. It's been awesome hanging out with all of you for the last month. So thank you, everybody. Before you go, we are doing another topic next month. We are doing Facebook ads. Yes, Facebook ads, that troubling marketing method in the world of e-commerce. It is kind of on its way back, dare one say. They've got over the iOS attack. They've worked out how they're gonna take it forwards, and there are some brilliant things you can now do, and you certainly should be giving a test to. We've had a thank you from one of the listeners. Cheers, Edward. Thanks for tuning in again. There are lots of amazing stuff you can now do with Facebook ads. It is worth testing again to see if you can redeploy some budgets there. And the warning that comes with this is if you are doing what you were doing with Facebook ads 12 months ago, 18 months ago, you really need to change it up because you are missing out. So we have, starting next Wednesday, we've got Aggie Maroney joining us to talk about Advantage Plus shopping campaigns. Big topic. We then got Johnny from Digital Gearbox doing a really cool session on how he's using AI tools to improve results and save time on Facebook ads as well. We're then going to be doing how you can grow your email list with Laura Hanlon. And off the back of today, you could also use those tips to grow your postal list as well to increase your offline marketing activity. And then we're going to wrap up by going kind of deep into a couple of the ways in which you can optimize the performance of your ads with Jessie Healy. So loads of great stuff coming up on Facebook ads. So make sure you tune into that. You'll be able to sign up to our Facebook ads Q&A webinar from tomorrow. And for now, though, that's it for Offline Marketing Month. Thank you all for tuning in and have a great rest of the day. Bye, everybody.